this.
Okay. Ja, was hat der Mittler Rebbe gesagt, dass der Meister, you know the Meister with the Mittler Rebbe. Als the Mittler Rebbe married off one of his daughters. How does the story go? Mit Chernobyl. We get the story. Right. The Cherkasser, he was an Adim by the Motel at Chernobyl, or he was, yeah. I think that's how it goes. And he took the Mittler Rebbe's daughter, at Chasting up the Mittler Rebbe's daughter, the Cherkasser. Matter of fact, they were called Slonim. No, one of them was called Slonim. Yeah. Right. That's where all the Slonims come from. I'm not familiar with all the Inyanim. It's all funny. Is the Reb Hillel Paritcher, he was a model at Chernobyl's Chassid in Onibs. And he came over officially in this man from the Mittler Rebbe. That's when he became, Mufursim, that he sort of be Makusha to Shittas Lubavitch, to Chabad, Makusha to the Mittler Rebbe, and as a writer. So the model at Chernobyl sent a starke Azhora to the Mittler Rebbe. And he said, if you don't give me back my chassid, then I'll see that they'll send your daughter back home. And she can talk to her, we'll arrange a get. To talk to her back home, he said, I want my chassid back. So the Mittler Rebbe, like, come, the Mittler Rebbe said, what you don't realize, he said that one chassid is tired by me, of his even tekter. So when they heard that, they realized they didn't have any threat anymore. But in the end, he did send her home. She came home for a while. And she's Ayin gekommen, and in the end, they took her back. The whole nice. Yeah, I think he did send her home, but then it was all behechreach. He was forced to send her away. He didn't want, and she didn't want either. And so in the end, it all came good. So I'm worried about this Bochum. Who is he? He was supposed to be here. So I'm saying, I'm worried about that Bochum more than all right. Good. Thanks, Mayor. Shukra. Toda Rabba. Right. So we were holding by the Indian that Rav Nishomer is shayev to the Hisbonenus B'Yehuda Tatorah. And we saw that through the Arichas Hisbonenus in the Inyanim, how the Koach Elokis is Mahava, Mahaya, the Nivra, and that can be connected through the Mipsori Echze, through the muscle of the Neshama with the Guf, Chulei. On the days, Bonins Bezer Nasa, Ha'inyan Bekiru Elov, it's about 4/5 or even a bit more down Shin Pei He. The Lula is Bonines, Hagam Shodea Eikshe Elokus Mahava Eso Elamis, or Mahayo Isom, Hari Ayatia Hu Berichuk Etzlei, Va'ena Poel Boy Dovar. Just the knowing and the knowledge, they say Aina Poel. Ain't a poyo by Dover. I say he knows about it, and he's even some midipam alev inyan over. It's not really poyo boy without the arichas isboninus, and we saw that the inyan of the isboninus is that it's mekare of the inyan etzloi, and that's what the Rebbe says about the day isboninus bahamokas adas. In other words, through the Hisbonenus bepu'ulas hadas, that he dafki is mamik bekoyach hadas, with that's the Indian of the involvement of the Adam himself in the noise of the Hisbonenus, anasa hayedia bekiruv elov, v'nirgish boil u'poel boy habitl. So we see here a couple of nakudas which are important for the klolas hamuvan of the concept is boniness. So we see that you can know many things. It's possible to have yediyos, rabbis, binyonim, suyomim, but they're not necessarily poyer be'odam dover. In other words, that he's not really mishtane lefi the noise of that idea. Even though the etzem idea, if we take it b'pshitusay, should mean that if a mensch were to be behetem to that, he would be completely shene b'kol chayav v'hanhagosay v'chulu. But the etzem fact that he's not is because the inyan is only b'pchinas yediyah bilvad, and therefore it's berichuk mimenu, even though he knows about it. And what is a pshat berichuk? That it's not poyo. Those are the types of richuk. We're not talking about richuk b'gashmiyah. The richuk is the choiser apiula ala adam. How do you bring about that? There should be apiula, which means kiruv, meaning that you live mamish with that inyan and all of your inyanei hachaim become behetem inyan there. So the Rebbe, that's through the inyan of das, and in das kufa the shimush of das in the nakuda of his boniness, and through that the inyan becomes bekiruv, and therefore it'll be niragash, and therefore it'll be poel. In other words, if not niragash, then it won't be poel. In other words, that there has to be l'cholapachas midah shebamoichin. At least that it's niragash al choponim b'moichin as well known that that's the ike inyan of das, that even in his boninus gufa he feels the inyan. It begins to talk to him, even shalal gosher. Oh, that's in the moyach gufa, and then it's nimshah from the moyach into the ikar ha'adam with his midah, and then he feels the inyan mamish, what you might call in the merkaz of the inyan ha'regish etzor ha'adam. If he feels it and he's aware of it and sensitive to it, that's the inyan of nira. Then poyo, then it has an effect on him. Or if you're not makarev the inyan la'atzmacha, then ain't a poil dover, even though you know about it. And maybe you even know, the proti ha-biur bedover, but if you're not mispeinen, you're not makarev the inyan, betich ha-chavila shelcha, as you might use the expression. To use the expression, you don't bring it into your pekel, then ain't a poil. It doesn't necessarily affect the order. Ramira said the Rebbe, that's the nakuda of his boniness, and that's shayach in inyanim, what the mensch can be oisik in them, lefi madregas nishmasei v'inyanei, dahainu yichud tatua. Dahainu, that there's a Matthias, but that whole Matthias is misava alidei, the elakus, everything is dependent in the universe, the highest is elakus, without necessarily his boniness in Bittul Gomov and from Kula Kamei Chalei Chashive, what is the even from Yehuda Iloah v'chulu, or the etzeminin that he understands that everything is alidei ha'elakus, and remember everything is nichis chayefa, the whole Matthias and Chayes of the elements is from elakus. Remember everything is bottled to that elakus. Alidei zeh it's nirgish boy or poel boy habitel. Ubefrat kasher misbeinen beoefen ha'oyer v'achayes elaki shebechol olam v'olam. What a little earlier he quoted here, one of the Friedike Prokim, or the Perek Kufnun, what over there, and in the Prokim Miyad Le'achris there we had the whole inyan, how he talks about the Seder which is brought in the Alter Rebbe Siddur in Baruch Shoma, another place where he goes there, Baruch Sha'oma, Baruch Hu, Baruch Zeh, all these different madregas in the Yud Gimel Baruchs there. The Alter Rebbe's Masbeh, how the Iyar comes through all the different madregas in eventually to Chokhmah Datzil, and after that to Zohar, and then eventually into Malchus, and eventually through Malchus into Ilmas Biyah. And so he said that's the what a mensch is misbeinen beoefen ha'oyer v'achayes eliki shebechol oilam v'oilam. Beoefen ha'oyer v'achayes eliki, meaning the oifen of it is hamshocha, and how it's miskale in that oilam compared to another oilam. In other words, in oilam abriya, it's in an oifen from gilui habe yoisa, in a way that the Ayin Eloki is Bugolui the Bamera, and therefore the Nivroim in Olam Abriya Betachas Habitel Vaishteiches Lelachus V'chulu. In other words, the Oifen meaning the way in which the air is Miskala B'chol Olam V'Olam. Harei, if a man is busy with that, and he's busy with the Oifen Hagile Elakus in the Olamas, and Lefizeh the Beetle, how do we say, corresponding bitl of the nivroim ba'oisem ha'olamas to elakus, then nitach ali deizeh minyon ha'olam, v'chol cheftze v'ratzeinai hu b'elakus, v'chol zeh hu b'chinas das takte. We're not talking about madrigas of bitl, but matzias no bitl hayesh what the inyan from das takte. But if a mensch kocht sich in the different pratim, which are shaykh to that level, then he can become completely busy in elikus. Nitak means he becomes, how do you call it, aufgeschnitten. Oh yeah, later, but never. Later was it pshat, not good. Yeah, hey, noch now. But he becomes nitak alidei zeh minyan ha'olam, and they took him away at another place. What in Islam? When you feel b'mochi macher. Therefore, says the Rebbe, all the inyani ha'olam become killer. But what it boils down to a simple principle. It depends. What's it the mensch? Ma b'mehu asuk. You know, the old saying. The Rebbe once told the Rebbe Melech Mashiach told the Meiser years ago. By bringing it, there was Reb Michal the Alter. I think it was Reb Michal the Alter. I'm not sure what. One of the well-known personality Chassidim in Lubavitch in the old days, in the time of the Rebbe Rashab noch, and he was connected with Tomchei Tmim. And then later in the time of the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe Ratz, he was still alive. And I think it was Reb Michal the Alter, but anyway, he was a Yid, wasn't really sharp much to Gashmias. He was a bit sort of Batlonish, and his whole inner was Asik, and like I said, he was also Kinel Kusa. This is the different elements. So once it was Psainam from the Goyish Askonim, the Rebbe also mentioned who he was. Also a Chassidish, but he was like an Askin, and he had some connection with the Malchus, with one of the Sorim or something, in the Malucha. So they had to go and meet this Sar in order to be Mavakish Mim, Kitzways and Ezra and for Tomchei Tmim. He should be put his protector, Latevasa, Lubavitch, Latevasa Yeshiva. So they decided they had to send up Zochin Shebechabura, one of the important peoples. So they chose this, I think it was Rebbe Michal the Alter, and he was going to go together with this, Chassid. So they meet at this point, and then they're going to go from there together. So it's very funny that I always said that the Chassid, the asking, he was so, he's so dressed up, and he says on giton balbatish and chain, and he said ve'ila der. The very interesting thing, the Rebbe said he must have been a soup Chonesh Kashmirs, to Tefillah he had the Atavan, but at least you know what that means. And so he came out and he didn't put himself together all that properly. He just tightened up his belt. Got him. He saw a gate check. That's the very very earthy that the Rebbe told this vice. So this Chassid takes a look at him and he says, "Give a koch machom ketach to plane ben plane." You have to look a bit. Masurach, it's like wool, Drei tchais a bissel, still tchais. So Michael Dals looked at him. He said, "Oi, oi, oi." He said, "Give a cookie was do least." He said, "Just take a look at what who do this." A little bit. So the other guy, what's he gonna say? He said, "Give a cookie was do least." So that's I think what the Rebbe means here. Malik in Hoichen, is Menitach. It doesn't matter what. Maduba, das Tachtin. Das Tachtin. Malik in Din Yonim, Malik in Eilamis, in Hamshachis, and in this, and then it liegt mit dem Pechel, and it liegt mit dem Eilam. So therefore the Rebbe says, Nitak. It not good. Talking like he says, but Mamir called Hefze, but a chain, but he's all geschmackes in, the next in he's going to have in Elikus. V'chol zeh, we begin as das takte, shabitel bezel begins bitla yesh levot, not talking about heimatreikes. Avo begin as das edien, vad bitel shebazeh, kula kamei chalei chashiv, there's really no Matthias Klau. In other words, that the Indian for das tachten is you start off with the Eilamus Pshitas, Velakus Bischatzes. And das Eliyahin is the other way around altogether. Velakus Pshitas and Matthias Bischatzes. In other words, that the ganze Indian in Kula Kamei Chalei Chashive is to verhandeln, how can there be a world? Wie kommt es da? Wie kann es einer. If it's saying no milvadi, how do you fit in the world? We get to Sarayan, As they say in Yiddish, we pastors. The whole Indian. It's Lagamri, another Asik. Here we're talking about the mention, he assumes that there are worlds, and he's also, we say, Elikus, kommt in der Welt, wie das Machaya der Welt. But nobody's really got any big shilas. Yeah, Socha Sota Shaila is, what is Socha Sof Elikus? Not, Ein Achanamit. Etzem Elikus, weiß man nicht, wo das ist. Aber the other way around, says the Rebbe, Ein Zebe Nivroim mitzad atzmo. They can't, Nivroim can't really have that. In other words, you can't have a Nivro, whatever, he dreht sich herum, bezeho Elam, and he's busy with the Inyon Zeho Elam, and all of a sudden you say, no, it's in Ganzen nicht da, das Natur ist, Mikor, the whole thing is really, it's Kalos, and nicht da, the only thing is Elikus, Rachule, Levade, who? So he said, a Nivro can't take that, just purely mitadatzme. Ki im kasher noishnim milmaila yediya vasogazu ubitlze. It could be that he will be zeicha, that yitno lo milmaila, that they'll be given a haragosha and a alchoponim, a certain chayis, and a certain chush, in that whole Indian milmaila. Oma shenoishnim ze milmaila, ze rafanef shalakis. Also, if it's given Momaila, then it's given only to the Nefesh Elakis. Sheyesh lo shayches alchoponim liyadia ubitel teh. In other words, how the Nefesh Elakis used to come into the world by this man. She's come behel vehesta haguf and Nefesh Abamis with Matthias Oilam. She doesn't live called rega with the Yemes Abitel of Kula Kamei Chalei Chashivei. Aber of course, of the Nefesh Elokis be'etzem mahusa, he's shy to that. She's not to blame that there's all this Helen Vehester. Aber bepnimius in Yona, or bepnimius mahusa, she is shy to it. And therefore, you can milmaila be megala to the Nefesh Elokis, because Sokosov, she is a Cleo, she is shy to that idea. Just that other factors are monea from her, the highest in there, because regava, and to use the expression, nitzi is shulik in them. She's not to blame. It's the Eleva Esther, and the Matthias of the world, which is Mailim, well, that's to blame. Aber BMs, then Efshalakis is shayach. So therefore he said, ki efshe lahasig masha'enu shayches l'zechlal. If you beklal not shayches to a certain Indian, then you'll never be able to have any hasogia in that klal. There has to be a certain basis of connection and what you might call alulius on your part to hear and understand a given inyan. If you're not beklal shaykh to it, then it's going to be what you might call wasted time trying to give it to you. The kol asogis inyan behechreach sheyeh lahamasig ezu shaychus el ha'inyan. Now notice that the expression is hasogis inyan. In other words, we want this to become the property of the makabel. We're not talking here about a beetle elyon, which can be nifal in a certain entity, milmail, and it'll just become ois matiyah. Now what we're talking here is that there should be a hasoga. Hasoga meaning, al chaponim in seichel, or in regish, or in the kelim sheba oisa ha'inyan, that he should be able to have that inyan b'pnimiyusa or b'koiches then you have to be somehow shaykhs. וכמו הסוגס הנפש אלוקי שהוא רק באלוקות, ואין לו שום שייכות לסוגס עניין הטבעיות כלל מצד עצמם. Purely מצד עצמם, the nefesh elokis doesn't know anything to do with inyanim tiviyim. In other words, that the way olam hazeh functions, the nefesh elokis מצד עצם inyan nitzach to them. Because the nefesh elokis, being as it is, the elokus be'etem, and being as it is originally from olam ha'atzilas, chokhmat atzilas, v'chulu. Even the etzem inyan of the shaychus of the nefesh elokis is b'emes to einoid milvade, and verkehrt, the inyan of matzias ha'olam is a tremendous bilbul to the nefesh elokis mitzad amitius, inyana ma'ashehi. Alachen said the Rebbe, Mamish, we take the nefesh elokis kamoy shehi, and she doesn't have any shaychus to inyanim tiviyim. But what is the whole inyan from teva ha'olam is not really shaych to the nefesh elokis. And he said, "The nefesh abam is la'ifach, and the nefesh abam is exactly kol asagosa yu binyanim ativiyim davke." His whole inyan is precisely in the anhoge which we call teva, tiviyus ha'olam. Ve'ein lo shum shaychus. He doesn't really have any shaychus, alulius and kesher with the inyan of elokus. His whole inyan is matzias oilam, and the way oilam come in hogei noiheg. What does it inyan from teva? The nefesh abami can be a big mathematician, or he can be a big madan, or another zol inyanim, or it tells in the teva hadora. And therefore, it doesn't mean that all Madonim have to be like that. It can be a Zochane. Madonim will say, verstehen, that this information only leads them to tell them just how bottled the whole world is and how beyond everything is only mitzad the Eivishter v'chulu. But the etzem nefesh abami is mitzad atzmei. He just knows the inyanim the way they are als elam betivoy or hanhagosei. Hayom is, even if it involves delicate knowledge in the inyanim from Mada of Ka'itzav V'zeh. But it tells how it is mitzad teva ha'inyan. And Bamela said the Rebbe, you got two complete opposites. The nefesh elokis knows only mitzad etzem shaychusa, she knows only inyanim efen elokus. And she not only knows how elokus is ein oid milvade, but kula kamei chaloi chashive, how everything is bottled to the Eibishter. I mean, mitzad etzem inyan nefesh elokis. Nefesh abam is pinked lahefuch mizer. So it says the Rebbe, if you say, how is it that the nefesh elokis can ever really talk to the nefesh abamis, and how is it they ever form episposa, how do you call it, a dialogue, a coalition. he's informed tonight. He's really informed. How do they form a coalition? He writes that they should, that what you're hinting at should never be a coalition. Take you from Iyar Botil, call a coalition. Aber upon him, if you say that a kesher zwischen zwei solchen Hafochim. So give a quick, the Rebbe says, it's a politic Sache. So the Rebbe says, Va'kishur, Va'chibur, the kesher and even the joining together. Kishur means that they become like tied together. Like we had earlier in the Emshech that the pashtus musik of kesher means two things that are separate. They need to be joined together. And chibur maybe means a slightly more previous and immediate type of a kesher mitzad atzmo. The nefesh elakish ima nefesh abamiyas. In what way? Sha nefesh elakish yasig elakus binyonim hativiyim. V'nefesh abamis yeloi gam kein asoga be'elakus. Hari ze rak bekoyach Ayin seiv hamafli lases. Lekashe ruchnis begashmiyas. And the Rebbe says, das ist alles eine legamre, who allein macht das. Nur der Ewige kann machen das. So nimmt er, that is mavui, and Kamadrushim, the Nefesh Elokis comes down and talks to the Nefesh Abahami, makes all sorts of inyonim and do it. And the Nefesh Abahami, he gets a bit out of himself and he starts, yes, this is a good thing, and it's a good thing, maybe it's good for me, and if it's good for me, then I certainly want it. And he starts going up a little bit, and the Nefesh, and then in the middle he got the Nefesh HaSichli years, what he's able to understand these inyonim of the Nefesh Elokis a little bit more b'derech matziyas, and he's also able to sort of pull the nose upwards with the Nefesh Abamish, because he's also Shata Noiga, he's Shata Inyonim for matziyas, and then through all these ribui different shodim, through the emtsoyas that the Nefesh HaSichli is, they form a form of Kachas become a drushim. I hear the Rebbe says, oh, forget it, see, we can't sign it. That the Nefesh Elokis should do us and Jens. He said, only the Eibishter mafli las. The Eibishter be'ein seif shaloi. He can make it should work. So what's it a pitch like? Where's all this, hierarchy in the middle of the Nefesh Elokis and the do's and the Jens, and they make the effort and they make the effort and do's, and that brings this and this brings this. This one goes into this one's territory, but this one was that. And in the end, it seems to all go nicely. So the Rebbe said, the Rebbe's word here is another one. He said, what we want, what does he mean by that expression? That the Nefesh Elokis yasig elakus bi'inyonim hativiyim. What's the pshat? If she should be masig elakus be'etzem minyan, she should look at the teva and say, well, the teva is an Emerson elakus. My chiddush b'Torah. I mean, that's her inyan. She would just see the teva and the teva. Good. You know. Yeah, kula kamekla. What's teva? What are you talking about teva? Ela l'chayra, we have to say, maybe the pirush bi'inyonim ativiyim means in those things that the Nefesh Abamish tries to be masbit to the Nefesh Elokis. About teva, and in Nochanami through whatever medium that may be, the Nefesh HaSichlis afila. But upon him, she gets a union of inyonim tiviyim, and that's what he's talking about. She gets a certain level, or she enters a certain realm where it's inyonim tiviyim, and she's got to use that to give over elakus to the Nefesh Abamish, which means that she's got to be masig elakus in something which that's legamri mufrach from her whole inyan. In other words, that ultimately, whichever way you put it, the intermediaries in the middle, the Ayin of the Nefesh HaSichli is, or whatever, all they've done is just made it easier in the oisias, between the different messages that are going across, and the oisias and the Hagdorah becomes easier. It's not so distant, min hakotze in the etzem approach. Of a so-called, if the Nefesh Elokis is going to take those inyonim now, and she's going to go down and try through the oisias, which she will know, and she's already been makabel the messer that Nefesh Abamish, she can't talk to him in the normal way, in her normal way. You've got to find a way to do it. So of course, what it means is that she's being masbir in Elikus, and she's giving over in Yonim Elikus through something which is Mailim and Master Be'etzem of Elikus. Because Teva is two Buba Yam Suf. The Elikus is Bahat Bo in the Inyon Teva. Yamamel Sof Kosov. Kumt Eiset the Nefesh Elikis is using such Inyonim to go down to the Nefesh Abamis and talk to him in a Inyan with the Heipach Inyan, no matter how cleverly she will go down through the medium. So she's giving over a message which a Heipach her whole Asoga, because Teva by her is a Inyan which is bottled completely. Ayin Oidmo. Ain Matzia Shel Teva. This does our Matzia.
How can I arrange for my Nefesh Elokis to speak to my Nefesh Abahamis and explain her some of these inyanim?
Well, that's what we say. What we've said before. You use the Nefesh HaSichlis. But the Nefesh HaSichlis helps your Nefesh Elokis to talk in a more, Seichel Dikah term in the Inyon HaTeva to the Nefesh Abahamis. You follow? Says, look, you got here, well, this is the world, it all runs through Elikus, it's really him, it's really that, it's really not so simple, and this, and this, and this.
I don't seem to have any contact with my Nefesh Elokis.
Well, I mean, it would seem that you probably need a bit of shock treatment. We probably all need a bit of it, I would assume. You need to sort of sit by a Siddish Vabrangan and just become a Tzibule. The famous statement of the Mittler Rebbe for Dizelver, a Tzibule. You become completely Ois Matthias and you become a Tzibule. I remember there was once a Fabrangan we had, I don't know, it was in your time. And we Fabrangan the whole night and came close to the morning. That's what he go on Tog. So the whole Maskana was to give you a certain bocha that he had to be taken to the mikveh right away. Most of the bochum were pretty well, how do you call it, mavusam. They'd already drunk quite a bit of mashkia. They were in the right mood, and there was this one guy that, he wasn't quite accepting a lot of what was going. So they took him all his bowls and they threw him in the mikveh at about 5 in the morning. That was in your time. They threw him all his bowls in the mikveh. Sometime in the morning, I said, think for myself. Huh?
In my time, we did it once with Bolton.
Was Bolton?
Yeah, we took Bolton to mikveh.
I wrote Bolton's mikveh.
Here in Beis Menachem, the old mikveh
Yeah.
there.
One of the mikvehs here, close at hand. Anyway, I don't remember which mikveh it was. I remember Skirnas Amas. That's what they need to do with you. That was usually a shock treatment. But I think the point here is in the mind that what the Nekudas Akvetch, where the Rebbe says that even with all what you will say, Sof Kol Sof, it's a machli lasa, is tikazach, is that even when the Nefesh Elokis goes down into those inyonim, how does she use them to give over her message? She doesn't see them as any Matthias. So how can you use something which is not your schera, klal? I feel a tip that you are using it. And you're using another medium to the Nefesh Elokis to help you. So of course, if I tell you dash to say klum, that's absolutely nothing. It's on the one hand, you're trying to be masbeh ultimately, to bring this Nefesh Abamiyas close to Elikus, but you're using a medium which you yourself see in that as Mamish Ayin whatever. If he comes Ayin, that you're able to use that Inyan, and you can still talk and make a kesher with that Nefesh Abamis and bring him when you yourself know. And your whole kayas and your whole etzem leben is Eivuk Miselagamri. If he comes Ayin, as often time. In other words, that you see in what you're talking, there's a lot of belonging.
You speak to people on things that are interesting in them,
right.
And you know that it's Gornish and that,
right.
those in Yonim, you speak to...
Yeah. So the Rebbe said, where do you get that koyach? Oh, this is the koyach HaMafli La'aseh. That's only the Eibishter, what he can be mahaper. I'm not mahaper, I'm sorry, he can be makasher. Two opposites, be'etzem ma'usam, if you form that dialogue, then that's what you're doing. You're using a koyach which is me'al l'shneihem. And al day that koyach, therefore, that's the famous word that if somebody stam goes out of Mivtoim, and he doesn't go b'shlichus for an emissary, Nosi b'Yisrael, then Cholila he's lache to be mistabeh. In bedachas in begasas. And therefore, you got to be very careful what you say and what you do. And that's what many of the sikhs, where the Rebbe says that you're not allowed to be mavater of a few koitche shel yud when you're talking with people in order to make them feel better. You've got to tell them exactly what the truth is in all of its inyonim. How do you get the koyach to make that work? Because it's a koyach koilul mi'al lecho v'gam loi, and there's a koyach which is being mechaber both of them together and causing them a dialogue what mitzad atzman they don't really have. And that's what the Rebbe means here. And therefore, he doesn't go into all the details which usually are mavua. Even b'derech, he could have said kamosha mavua, but mochimacher, the whole dialogue. He just says it's a koyach mafli la'asis. With that, it'll be very good. Why without a Rebbe, you can't just go around, making all these inyonim. And therefore, we see that even to this day, certain things which Lubavitch does, nobody took on. I mean, taking on making machinas to teach people and to talk with them, lectures about Yiddishkeit and Torah, all those sort of things. Of a mamish to go down to the people and travel all around and carry out with all sorts of people. It's only because of the Koyach of Lubavitch. And that's the power of Machlilas. And your dogma is mamish the Nakuda. You're talking from a Zah angle. Last night we happened to mention at the end of the summer Vovshir, one of my bochim called me and said he can't come. He lives in Prague, and he's in Prague at the moment. He can't come back till next week because all the tickets are booked out. You can't get possibly in or out. The whole of Prague is Sogur and Musugar, Alidei Yisraelim. There's tens of thousands of them because of the basketball final. The rest of you guys are clowns.
No, a guy in Mitzrayim asked me if I can get
There was a big basketball final in Prague. I also didn't know about it, but I heard about it. Big basketball final. How do I know? Because this Bocher called me up and he said he's not coming back till next week. So I said, wait, what's happening? I said, well, he said there's about 15,000 Israelis or something. And they're all walking around here in the streets, and wherever you go in Prague, you bang into all these Israelis in the streets. They all came over, and they lost. They lost the match. Never.
They put on tefillah.
Yeah, the cap went to Goyim. Anyway.
The mitzvah stayed by them.
Huh?
The mitzvah stayed by them.
Yeah. So I said to him, that's a shkocha from the Meibishten, that you have to be the geyer or is in gas and talk with these people. Do something. So, the Beit Chabad is organizing and it's got a whole hotel going and there's minyanim. And I said, yeah, but you should be in this year. And they thought, that you can't be. Go out into the street and talk with these guys. Do something. So he said, yes, of course, I will, and I am this, and I am doing it, and I will. And I said, nah, propel mummies. I talked to them about Mashiach, because some of these Beit Chabads, I'm not sure if they're going to talk with them openly about Mashiach, talk with them about Mashiach. So that's the whole thing. Yeah. So we were talking last night, how do you reach these people what they give away money and time from their businesses, from their work? I mean, 15,000 people, a lot of people, And they're all dragging around over there in Prague, and they're cops, in this ball that's going to fly into a thing. It's not, that's what this our mention about, about Mashiach is coming, watch Mashiach coming, the whole world's going to be Alakus, the whole world's going to be in the Rishus of the Eibush, the Mamish, there'll be a Beis Hamikdash, there was a Beis Hamikdash, it was a Retzman, there was a Beis Hamikdash, Elamai. Well, that's exactly what they do. No matter how far you will talk to him, you're absolutely in another world to him. We have the nefesh elokis waste this was. I feel that she came down to the nefesh sickness. She sees in that just a lot of good. What is she doing after all the nefesh? She's just talking a lot of baloney. Absolute, divrei havaya as far as she's concerned. And she knows the whole thing of it. Nishtan. How can you make a kesher? How can you hold on? Wie geht es der ganze Geschäft? All you need to do is begin. If you begin as a koach hamafli latsa, the Eibishter will help that it'll become a kusha one way or another. And idea. But if you don't go down a little bit and talk somewhat in the inyonim materium, then you'll never go. Dos kufa also a power. That's all part of the mafli latsa. The Eibishter gives that kufa into the nefesh elokis, or that yichoyle.
We started out the Iyar bonus is in Yehudi Tata.
Yeah,
We started out the Iyar bonus is in Yehudi Tata.
No. We're talking on another Indian altogether. We're talking now on another Indian altogether. What we're saying is that the nefesh abamiyas mitzadatva has no shaykhs whatsoever to these inyanim. The nefesh elokis has a shaykh you can talk to, and that's what he said. That the whole Indian of Yichudi Lo is only shaykh to nefesh elokis. That's what we're talking. We're not talking about bringing the bitl of Yichudi Lo into the nefesh abamiyas. We're saying that the gili of Yichudi Lo can be to the nefesh elokis because be'emes she has a shaykh to it. That's what we're talking. So just as part of the whole picture, the Rebbe says that the whole Indian of the nefesh elokis is elokus mamish. The fact that she's able to tell the nefesh abamiyas beklal, that's the koach hamafli latsa. Yeah. Or she doesn't talk the nefesh abamiyas at the beginning about Yichudi Lo. The etzemina, the nefesh abamiyas would want a little bit of gishmak and elokus. That's also tachlis hakavah. You follow? I said the Rebbe, v'akishu v'achibu. Yeah, das ist eine von mafli latsa. It's a pillar word. And in Mamela, yesh b'zeh hashloch is rabbim. When you think about, and benegel inyoneinu eino chanami. How do people get the koach to talk in the street to people about elokus? Doesn't know what they mean. It's a koach hamafli latsa. It's a koach from the Eibishter, to bring into people what they klal don't have any shaykhs, klal. I said, this fellow Matis, this Talmud of ours, he's trying very hard now he wants to make a website about Mashiach, and he's trying to get into this whole mentality of people who are out there in the street. He's going to try and make the website talk to them. That's his whole big project he has in mind. I hope he won't mind me mentioning it. He's an Nishoma Nishmas Pele. He's working out tremendous yagiyah to try and find a way to bring Mashiach to all those people out there, the coffins and the ball flying into the basket. How are you going to talk to them? You follow? What gives you the koach to find that is the mafli latsa. How do you get that? If you're makusha to somebody that he got the mafli latsa, he's pagoli. This is the Rebbe. And therefore, it's amazing. Look at all the people that the Rebbe reached. The Rebbe is one of the most old-fashioned, conservative people that have ever existed. All he did was sit in Brooklyn, never went anywhere, never drove anywhere, never went anywhere. He walked back and forth from his house into the office. And yet he made this unbelievable personal relationship with so many thousands and thousands of people, all over the world. Mentioned. But they said, well, if not the Rebbe, this wouldn't happen, that wouldn't happen. Now here, that's the koach hamafli latsa. It's that good. It's a dominion. Anyway, benegel inyoneinu. So the Rebbe says, "Ukamei kein yuvan the idea of a bitl the das elyon yochel liyesh rak benefesh elokis. Das elyon mamish. Mepnei sheyesh lo shaychus beklal elokus uberfrat sheshor shoyim elokus shel mayla migeder elemet." Since the nefesh elokis her etzem shoresh is in la mayla migeder elemet, the ainu, how do you call it? Who chokmasi echad mamisha all in yonim mamiyuchid beatzmusi is bara. therefore, the Nefesh Elokis Malachatchila, mitzad etzem minyona, or mitzad etzem shorshoi, she just sees how there's no Metzias of Eilonis Beklawot. That's it. However, she doesn't really like it to Mavurin. She doesn't need any beer. There's no necessity for any hezbollah to the Nefesh Elokis. It's only that the etzem gilui and the etzem haragosha of Das Elin is the Indian of the Nefesh Elokis. Whatever he says, due to that cherish she has in Lamayla Mi'a'ilamis, it's her whole being is shaykh to that bittul. Ukiyatuah shanishomes hein beginas hamshocha atzmiyas. Right there, hamshocha from atzmus elikus. Yeah, the Hainu, there from Chochmei Lo, like he says in Tanya, and Misha Ayin Sham of Perik Beis, see that when he says Chochmei Lo, he means how atzmus is mechusha im, or the other way, how Chochmei Lo is mechusha mit atzmus. So therefore he says, Yeduah shanishomes hein beginas hamshocha atzmiyas, rak shenasu beginas metzius bifnei atzmom. V'yal kein, Nefesh Elokis noisnim, Milmaila habitl de Das Elien, Eik Shekula Kamei Chalecha Shivei. So says the Rebbe, here's the quetch. Mitzad her shoyrish, then she's on Amshocha Atzmiyas. Rak. Now the rak is like the what you might call the opposite to the pitch lights, it's the quetch. Rak. Shena Sibchinis Metzias Befnei Atzma. Like the Alter Rebbe writes over there in Iyar v'chayei ochad, in the famous Igeras, Iyar v'chayei ochad, but the Alter Rebbe writes over there that the Nishom is b'bchinas ha'kelim da'atzilas, had a miyuchid with the kav, avonasu nifrodim me'hakelim. They've been nifrod a little bit, kilo, even b'shorshom, how they are from the kelim, and therefore they're nimshich lamata, nisharim be'etzem mahusam, like he writes over there, the nishar mamish elikus, over there nifred a little bit from the yichud with the kav that the kelim have in atzilas. And therefore, since they're nifred from the kav, well, that's what he writes over there, the famous kasher, the nisham should be able to be boyer elamas. If it's from the kelim of atzilas, and the kelim of atzilas are yichud with the kav, that's how they actually creates the world, through the kelim and through the yichud with the kav. So he said, no, that they've already been nifred kitzas mi'akav, ve'afal pikein, einem mafsidim mahusam ha'atzmi, that they're mamash elikus of the kelim. Remember, it comes out that the nishomim, mitzad etzem minyona, is elikus in azar, or even that you can even have a kasal chadaita, that you should be able to be mahava oilamas. But derech hagav, everybody's familiar with the fact that the Maral Mi'Prague was at least mahava agoilam. I mentioned Prague as well, but Rangefalling come from the Goyla. And he was Mamish Ma'avim with Hashem. And he was a Matthias. I mean, how was it? 10 or 12 years he had him round. It's Chormagirate 10 or the 12th year in the world.
He's still there, that boy.
Yeah, he's up in the watchman garden. Yeah, he just took away his kili of the Matthias or the Nachal. Yeah, and as far as I know, the only human being that's been up there and came back down again was a Friedrich Rebbe, Lester from the Mouth. Yeah, the Rebbe Rashab was gewaldig brigus of him, that he went up, because Sarkonis Nefashis thought again. Anyway, so we see that there are certain people that they were pretty close to it. The Alter Rebbe says, "Afu pikein Einem Mahavi Moilim, it doesn't say that the Rebbe thought after Neshama, because the Neshama comes from the Kelim, that's it. The Kelim are Yichud with the Kav. The Kav is the Koyach HaYisava. The Yichud from the Kelim with the Yoher is the Yichud Atzmi. If the Neshama comes from there. So he said, no, Nifrudu Kitzas, Miya Kelim. Therefore they don't have the Kav as Eifu Begolui in it that they can. They stay thought in. You guys are Batlani, what's with you guys? Imam, kommt Toish Lafise, that the Neshama is Etzem Elakus, like he writes over there, Betzimtzum Godel, all this Lashenis, but yeah, net. The Neshama is Mamish Etzem Elakus, and he said, nonetheless, Nase, That's a whole big, unbelievable trick that the Eibster makes with the neshama. Because nifur the ketzas mi Ayin and akelim, and she comes down in a way that there's always that little sort of period. Therefore, she's able to enter the guf, be as it were separate. But she's mamish alakus, and therefore she's not really shat to nivroim. She's nishka nivra. She's only something that was dropped down in a slightly strange way from kelim datzil. Said the Rebbe Kunta, he said she's really etzem alakus, but she's just come in a way of liyos nifrad b'fnei atma tzir b'afer v'al kein and evshalakis nois nimil ma'ila habitel de das elien ekshekula kamei chashiv. So in the next also the Rebbe will be medayik more what do you have to give her, because that period does after all work. To a certain extent she comes down into the world, shayach to it she is, but she doesn't have the ability to sort of express it begolui because of the elevation of the world and the matzias of the guf. Noisnim momaila because she's shy of all the eich, and therefore they give it to her begolui, and she's able to express it begolui. What is the medium that she brings out that shaychus that she has b'lavachi to that? Well, that's in from Torah. That's what's before umatum. Hashem oiz le'ametoin, oiz is Torah. That the Eibster gives a koyach into the nefesh elokis that she should bring that bittul and that etzem shaychus telekus that she has b'lavachi, she should bring it into giloi. And so the Rebbe says, "V'zehu alidei Torah shebiksav." Now we're going to see that it's beika through Torah shebiksav. Shehi amshocha b'pchinas shem ma. What shem ma is the bittul amiti of Atzilus. The bittul of Hulavad Veinzu, Losi, like the Alter brings in Tanya and Perek Lamed Hey. V'ainu am shochem no maila liyos b'chinas habittul hazeh. In order, liyos habittul means that the bittul should be there by golui. Darei Torah shebiksav hu shenitnem el maila. V'hi dvar Hashem lo Moshe leimer l'chol Yisrael. Dagam oisius ha-Torah hein oisius elyonim shenitnu yem el maila. In other words, that even the oisius themselves are ma. We could say that's al derafis mavur. It considers that I feel the kli of chokhmah is also oyer. In other words, does it for sure that there's a difference in chokhmah between oyer and kli, because after all it's a sphira chokhmah. There's a difference between oyer and kli. But nonetheless, the kli of chokhmah is b'madregas ha'oyer. It's hard to differentiate between the oyer and the kli. So that's what the Rebbe says here, that the Torah b'etzem is ma, and for the oisius the Torah also. They're like the kelim of chokhmah. They're also ma, even though they're already kelim like gabi the etzem oyer. But nonetheless, they're also ma. V'ainu, says the Rebbe, am shochem no maila. In other words, that bittul that there is in Atzilus should be begolui lamata in the neshama. Darei should be ksav hu shenitnem o maila. I'm sorry. The gam oisius atera hein oisius elyonim shenitnu ukaneda the b'shem ma yesh bechinas oyer v'kli. Exactly what we were just marames. Ki iyar shelo liyos oyer b'loi kli. Everything's got to have a kli. In other words, normally speaking, a kli is machsir a bit of the bittul and brings Ayin for Ezish Umatzir. That's the Indian of a kli. It's mailim of the bittul of the makabel. Of the mashpia, which is nimshach into the kli, and it's malim afel and bring him up with less bittul than what he entered kaviyam. Or here, the Indian from the kli is he's off as he feel botel that he brings over the gilui how it is mitzadiyah. In other words, the etzem oyer Torah is ma, is also the eish is also madrega from ma, and all they do is that they poil the Indian of the gilui, but not that they're really mishana the etzem bittul. And that's what we see is what this Mavur, it's like I said, Al Darav is Mavur, considers the union that even the clear Chochma is also the union from oil. Therefore, it's nimshach al yedei teresh b'ksav, or the gilui of that bittul. Zeu in oises the ma shem mevin yedei gilui a bittul the shem ma. Hein oises a teresh hein mevin mamshich gilui beginnes deo and yoina. There's a bittul the ma beginnes bittul b'metzias. Zeu limud the teresh b'ksav. Hamshich beginnes a bittul the ma shezeu b'derech prat be'anefesha elokis. The hine bekrishma is Beis holiday HaTorah, also holiday HaTorah. We'll finish it off in the coming. I just want to sort of get to the hemshech of the Maskona.
What's it mean by limud Torah shebeksav?
Limud Torah shebeksav?
Just learning Otiot? Saying
No, limud Torah shebeksav. Yeah, Ein Hanami, maybe you got a good point. It's muvur. In sense that you make a bilchas HaTorah even on kriyas HaTorah. Forget, everybody can do that, even somebody's not shy to Havana Vasoga, because in Torah Shebiksav, then the Ika Gilius Alidei, the Etzem kriyas HaTorah, the Etzem Oisiyas, so Ein Hanami, it could be it's not so much Ayin from Limud B'derech HaSoga, over the Etzem Amirus Oisias and the Etzem Asik in the Oisias HaTorah. So it could be that somebody that's more a bit of a balasogi, he can be mavin certain inyonim in the Torah Shebiksav. Alidei the klolim biyadeinu. I always see the sichas in Rashi. They brought out all sorts of inyonim. They're through the bio of Rashi HaTorah Chulu. They call chadli from shuri delay. But in Hanami, you have a point. The inyan of limud Torah Shebiksav is more shy to the Oisias. It's more side to the others. It's like we say Tehillim and Nochaz Al Chinyonim. Mitzad Etzem Dinim from Bilchas HaTorah, it's already called Limud. That's I said no. Or and maybe that's the Mila here, that you're not mi'arev in that any Inyonim Mitzad the Etzem Odom. It's just the Etzem Oisias and the Etzem Torah Kavoshahu. That's what he says. Nitna L'Moshe L'Leim Ela B'nai Yisrael. You just give it over the way it is. There's a big mile in just saying Oisias HaTorah, because to a certain extent that's a limud. Lagabi klum for sure it's a limud, and Davke Alidei Zeh is the transportation, as you might call it, through the Oisias, which are not milim, they're just Oisias Hamagalim, of the Bittul Atzmi of Torah into the world. Good. And so therefore we'll see later that the Inyan Torah Shebal Peh is more shaita than Nefesh Abam. It's the Hainu that it brings the Inyanim into a Soga, and that you need more for the Nefesh Abam. The Nefesh Elokis doesn't really need that. Good. Okay, guys. So what it means is, that's a tough good trial. That's Musayim. It's Gelas Elokus Lamata. How do you turn it off now?
It was a hara that the picture of the Rebbe Shapshvi
brought one of them to his Rahman in Atlant, to what was due. Rahman in Atlant, after he'd done it for tens of years, and let hundreds and hundreds of Yidden be slaughtered on the streets. And it's still happening. So, al tiftat picha l'sota, I don't want to be, ich will nicht gehen sagen, aber das ist sicher, that Achris Teiv is not waiting for these guys either. Because they're the leftover of that one little shreed that the communists left over. Somehow another year now, to give them a hop on. It's very, very hard to rule it out. Of Melech HaMashiach is well on the way to doing it. So anyway, suffice it to say, he said, what happened to Friedrich? Not only did he break that unbelievable machine in Gashmis Oilam Kipshut,